inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
The National Underground Railroad Freedom Center opened in 2004. In the last 12 plus years, it has explored ways to fulfill its mission to reveal stories of freedom's heroes, both from the antebellum period in American history and in contemporary society, especially around the topic of modern slavery. The center also works to be a safe place for people to come together to grapple with challenging topics, including race. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. Last month, the Freedom Center announced that Clarence G. Newsome, its president, will be leaving this spring. Before he leaves, I want to have Dr. Newsome on the program to discuss where the Freedom Center is today and where he thinks it's headed in coming years. Dr. Newsome holds 3 degrees from Duke University, including a master's in divinity and a PhD in American religious history. Perfect degree, by the way. He now serves on the Duke Board of Trustees. Before joining the Freedom Center in August 2013, he served as the president of Shaw University and the dean of the School of Divinity at Howard University. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you, Dan. So very glad to join you, be with you.
Well, and I have to, of course, in these sorts of situations, reveal I've got a giant conflict of interest because in the very early years, I was connected to the creation of the Freedom Center, but so I care a lot. So, how would you today, at this point in 2017, how would you evaluate the health of the Freedom Center?
Oh, well, I think over the past 3 years, during the time that I've been here, we've made a lot of progress in that regard. We're clearly on the right track. When I got here, one of the goals given to me, as it was, as a way of putting it, was to get the endowment up from something less than $4 million. It was around $3 million something to $10 million. We've done that. We've gone beyond that, working to move beyond that. We finished the past fiscal year with an operational surplus. Our contributions are going up. I had a wonderful experience right before Thanksgiving. So I was leaving the state, heading to North Carolina a few days before Thanksgiving, and I got this call, and the person said that rather than having us think about a time period for the gift that he and his wife wanted to give, let's just say that they'll give $100,000 indefinitely. I think anecdotally that gives you some idea that we're moving in the right direction. So earned income is up. Our attendance is at record levels. We're 16% beyond where we were last year this time. Last year this time we were beyond where we were before, and the revenue's coming in. That's a sort of an indication of the progress that we've made.
One other question I want to ask. What sort of debt exists on the institution from the construction process or whatever?
None.
None. See, this, and the reason I'm asking these questions is I think there's an impression out there that this is an organization, an institution that is in bad financial shape. But if it's got $10 million in endowment, it has no debt, and it's operating in the black, that's a wrong perspective.
Well, institutions like this always have challenges. We're working to get the cash flow really, really strong. We're not where we want to be. But this is not an institution about to go out of business by any stretch of the imagination. And so I'm delighted with the hard work that our team has done. I'm delighted with the kind of work that people like you did in the early years, creating a strong enough foundation for somebody like me to be able to go before the nation and, you might say, sell the vision and sell this resource that is so much needed in our national life today. So we've been able to build a very, very strong support system outside and beyond Cincinnati now. The person who said 100,000, he doesn't live here. We've had people to say, we'll make $500,000 commitment, and they don't really live here, and they're really drawn by the mission and the work of the Freedom Center.
And that was our hope from the beginning. That's why it has the title, National, that we wouldn't just be drawing from the same resources that local organizations.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, on another front, how would you say the programming is? How do you feel about the programming and the state of that?
Well, the programming has, in my opinion, improved so significantly. I assessed what I saw when I got here, and I just felt it wasn't quite where it needed to be in terms of the broad appeal. The Freedom Center, Dan, is for everybody. Everybody expects excellence. So I said to our team, let's make sure that our programming is varied enough so that people really get the message of this place with respect to it being a resource to everybody in this region and the nation, and let it be at such a level of excellence that people can't deny the reason it exists and the benefit it can mean to people's everyday lives.
You know, one of the things about the Freedom Center is, and programming is one of the direct elements of this, is that it's always been, from the very beginning, sort of what I think caught in a whipsaw. Whereas a lot of people in the white community say, I don't want to go there because they're going to try to make me feel bad. It's a black institution, they're going to try to make me feel. And a lot in the African American community say, got too much corporate support, it's too whitewashed. And consequently, you get people who don't even sample it, and people from both sides. How have you tried to address that
Well,
issue?
first of all, by telling people to come, get close, get involved, get with it, to see for yourself that it is not what you think it is, if it's a misrepresentation of what we do, and then to help correct anything that might need correcting. We've had a lot of people to get involved since I've come to Cincinnati, and they have seen, oh, this is not a house of pain. This is not a place of hurt. This is not a place of racial division. This is not a place of shame. In point of fact, what it is a freedom center. It's not really a historical museum. It's not a slavery museum. It is a center focusing on freedom and freeing people up to be their best selves within the context of a free republic, helping a free republic to mature and grow to a grand vision that our founding fathers put forth at the time of the beginning of the nation.
And do you feel like that, talking about the mission at the beginning, I was trying to summarize it very quickly, this idea that it would be a safe place where people could come together and talk about difficult issues. And in our general discussion in society, we frequently say, we need to keep talking about race, or we need to keep talking about whatever, fill in the blank. How do you feel about the ability of the Freedom Center to live up to that goal?
In the past 3 years, we've had some wonderful demonstrations of achieving that goal and maybe even surpassing our expectations. There are some people in Cincinnati who are aware that when the city was about to host the Major League All-Star baseball game, that we were on the verge of having a very major protest to put before the nation on account of many social ills and concerns in the life of the city. Well, I want to take this moment to thank the Castellinis again, and to even thank the commissioner of Major League Baseball and a person like Wendy Lewis, who at that time was vice president for diversity in the home office there in New York of the Major League Baseball organization, for working with us to have a difficult conversation with key leaders in this city in a safe space, in a way that promoted a lot of understanding and some healing, and is even now working its way out in the way that conversations are going on around the city that have been very beneficial to the life of this city and this region. The partnership with MLB is one of the best examples I could give along that line. I wish you had been there. I wish everybody had been there to see the people who were involved in that conversation when we had them in our Harriet Tubman Auditorium. People with Major League Baseball were so impressed that they have shared the video throughout the franchise cities and owners.
And that the total all-star experience was a great experience on so many levels. What's on the agenda? Where do you think the Freedom Center has to go in the next 3-5 years?
Well, we've done a lot to advance the organization with respect to its financial position. Have to stay the course there. There are a lot of people in our nation yet to be reached to come in and join forces with people here in Cincinnati to strengthen the organization in that way. But programmatically, and I really want to get this over to Cincinnatians, as a basically outsider, I can still say that Cincinnati has a resource that the nation absolutely needs, and so that as the organization moves forward, it needs to continue its outreach beyond Cincinnati. Now, not forgetting Cincinnati. I mean, the credibility of the organization has everything to do with how relevant the organization is at home, and we've done a lot of work in that regard. But that being said, I have found that as I talk with people from New York to LA to Chicago to Atlanta, given some of the cities that we've really been working, they are so very, very impressed with what this organization was founded to do. I met with the VP for Delta about a year ago, and he said, I hadn't heard about this, the VP for Communications. And by the time we got through sharing with him what this organization was created to do, he leaned over and said, freedom, who can doubt the value and the importance of that? What we want to do, he said, is to profile the Freedom Center in our Sky magazine. So this past July, I had this spread there in Sky magazine. I'd get on a plane and people would say, we've got a celebrity on the plane because my picture was in Sky magazine. We want to continue that kind of outreach and approach because the nation will benefit more and more by understanding what freedom is. It is the foundation of our democracy. And until we know more and more about freedom, our democracy will be limited in its capacity to thrive.
We're doing this interview early because of schedules, your schedule, my schedule. We're actually doing it the morning after President Obama gave his farewell address. And that was a sentence he could have worked in last night very easily.
Yeah.
What's ahead for you?
Well, there are a number of things. I came to Cincinnati actually with a 3-year commitment. This is what I said to my wife, and then began to wonder, should we stretch it out? Now is the time for me to return to some things that I'd wanted to do and some other opportunities that quite honestly have come my way. One of the things I want to do, since you mentioned Obama, is to finish this book that I started about 3-4 years ago on Obama, entitled Quest for Power. This is my working title, Quest for Power, a religious biography of Barack Hussein Obama. And even as I began work on it, I asked myself, should I try to get a draft together before he comes out of office? And I said to myself, you know, the historian who is most responsible doing what you're trying to do with this material would probably want to wait until after he's done. Well, he's done. And so I'm kind of hungry now to give birth to this project. People have been asking me over the past year to get back to the state of North Carolina to provide some leadership. And I've served on the Ethics Commission for 10 years, and for many years I was the only African American. Recently another person joined. But A few months ago, I got heads up that the state might want to join the Ethics Commission with the Electoral Board, and that would require a lot of time. So we are, at the present time, as you might know, kind of betwixt and between on that. I did want to share with you, because I thought you'd ask a question like this. So this was my Christmas gift from the state of North Carolina just a day or two before Christmas. This is our book on elections law.
And you read this in the evening, just keeping...
I have started it. I started it the moment it arrived, with the letter that came with it and stating the responsibilities. And should we go forth with the merging of those two boards, I will have to be available to meet 2 or 3 days each month, every month of the year, and that's only part of what I'm referring to in terms of some opportunities.
Well, and writing a book is a very full-time.
Very much so.
I really understand that. I want to thank you for your leadership, your dignity, your insight that you have brought to Cincinnati, and wish you well in the
Dan,
future.
thank you so very much.
All the best.
Appreciate that.
All the best.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. After the break, we turn our attention to local efforts to prepare for possible change in the federal policy regarding immigrants, especially those brought to the United States as small children, the Dreamers. Welcome back. One of the primary threads in the Trump presidential campaign was an anti-immigrant rhetoric. Some was directed at Muslims, especially Syrians. Other attacks were focused on Mexicans and Central Americans who have crossed the southern border without proper documents. As a candidate, Trump promised, threatened to block all Muslims, or sometimes just people from countries facing terrorism. He also promised to build a wall along the Mexican border, expel all or some of those who lack documentation, and block those seeking refugee status. With the inauguration over, these conflicting statements should soon be clarified into policy. The question for local undocumented immigrants and their supporters has been what to do depending on the scenario that now unfolds. I am joined now by Allison Reynolds-Berry, the Executive Director of the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center. The IJPC is a faith-based organization. Allison has worked in El Salvador, Boston, and Cincinnati. Ada Avila is a junior in the PPP program, Philosophy, Politics, and the Public. The program is at Xavier University. She was born in Veracruz, Mexico, and was brought to the United States when she was 4 years old and graduated from Ryle High School. Ada works as a bank teller and is active with IJPC's Youth Educating Society, the YES program. Welcome to Newsmakers, both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Ada, just to start out, what's your status right now? Because you were brought here when you were 4. Mm-hmm. How old are you, and what's your status?
Right now, I am 21 years old, and my status is that of a temporary resident alien. So I have DACA, which was the executive action that President Obama issued in 2012. So as of right now, I am... Deferred
action for childhood arrivals.
Right, yes. And so I have that work permit, so I'm good for now until 2018, unless something else happens.
Okay. And Allison, why is your organization involved in this? Why is this one of the causes that you feel committed to?
Sure. For us, it's really important to pay attention to those who are on the margins. And we know that coming from a faith-based organization, knowing that we want to reach out to our neighbors and welcome all of those who make Cincinnati what it is. It's really important for us to include immigrants in that group. For me personally, I have experience in Central America and feel really connected to the issue of immigration. And so on multiple levels, this is something that we are really attentive to and passionate about and want to keep supporting moving forward.
And this is something the organization has been involved with for some time?
Correct. So for about 6 years, immigration has been one of the focus areas of IJPC.
As I mentioned in the first part of the show, we're taping this show, we're recording this interview almost 10 days before it airs because of some timing issues. But yesterday, in reality, yesterday, the Senate held sessions interviewing the proposed new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. And in that interview, he said, he was asked the question by two different senators, what was his proposal to do with DACA? And basically he said he would not be opposed to recommending that it be ended. He was then asked twice about where did that leave the 800,000 people like you? And he said, well, the Congress should fix the system. And Senator Durbin then said to him, yes, but you've opposed all the efforts to do that. So should DACA be ended? What do you think it means for you?
If DACA were to end, everything that I've worked for would basically end right along with DACA. I would no longer be able to work legally, drive legally. I would go back to doing everything the way it was done before, you know, driving without a license, working under the shadows, getting paid under the table. If I were to graduate, I probably wouldn't be able to find a job career-wise that would allow me to work without a document. I would probably be stuck serving or cleaning houses because that's the only, you know, the things that you can do while getting paid under the table. So for me, it would basically mean that everything that I worked so hard for would end right along with DACA. So it would be completely devastating for me. Buying a house, buying a car, that would be out of the picture.
How long have you been employed as a bank teller?
I was hired as soon as I graduated high school. So in 2014, ever since then, I've been working with the same bank. And I've stayed there, and they've helped me tremendously.
Okay. If DACA, this is only a part of the immigration issues that are out there, ended, what would it mean, not just for Ada, but also for how many other people in this community, and what do you think psychologically the impact would be?
Sure. So I know that there, in terms of numbers, are about 7,000 DACA recipients in Ohio. I don't know the specific numbers for Cincinnati, but a number of the people like Ada that we're close to who are in our YES program, one person who's employed at IJPC, received DACA. And so for us, it would be detrimental, I think, on an emotional and relationship level. We know that there are many contributing members of this community who received DACA and who would be impacted by this. I think on multiple college campuses, this would be an issue. And for immigrant serving organizations like IJPC, we would want to respond in many different ways.
Would you be able to continue at Xavier as a student if DACA was eliminated?
Yes, I would.
That you would be able to do.
Yes.
What are the options? What is IJPC, what are other organizations looking at to respond not just to DACA, but to all of the immigrants?
Sure. I think that one of the things that we're trying to do is think about the many possibilities, right, from Trump's administration or what has been said throughout the election period. We know that there have been suggestions or almost threats, as I would take them, to the immigrant community, and really trying to figure out what are our options if any of those things take place. So for example, if deportations are to increase, what is our community response to that? If DACA were to be taken away, what can the community do to respond? I think our biggest concerns at this point, especially around deportations, is the separation of families. And so if US born children are here, or even if they're not US born, if a parent is taken from the workplace and families are separated, what are the options for those who are left behind? For people who are trying to hide or to protect themselves if they know that they're going to be deported, one of the things that a coalition who is organizing right now is looking into is the possibility of sanctuary. And so
sanctuary in churches and religious institutions.
Correct. And so using those places of worship as a safe space.
And just to be clear, that sanctuary was used in the 1980s during the El Salvador War, and our parish was involved in that. Yeah. We have less than a minute left. What's your attitude right now going forward, looking at all these potential changes?
I am very scared, but I am determined that I, along with everyone else, is determined to keep on working. whatever the future holds for us, I won't give up, not just for myself or for my family, but like you said, for the 800,000 others just like me and in worse positions. So I'm trying to use that fear to motivate me to keep going.
Well, thank you very much for being here this morning. We're out of time. But if you'd like to follow this story as it develops, check out the website at the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center and maybe get involved at www.ijpccincinnati.org. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women working to shape our region for a better future. Have a good week. Thank you.